Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cyber Pro podcast. It's 5 questions in 9 minutes because hackers never sleep. Marco, let's start here. Who are you and what do you do?
All right. Hi, Rick. Thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Marco Palacios, and I'm the senior tactical threat analyst, and I work for the company Fortinet in the 4EGAR MDR services, assisting customers conducting investigations using the EDR product that we have. And additionally, I am the vice president of a nonprofit organization called Pacific Hackers Association. We're helping veterans and other represented communities to get into the cybersecurity field, basically for free without, breaking the bank.
So you have no time whatsoever.
I have 2 jobs, literally. My full-time job for Fortinet, and then my second job in nonprofit.
That's awesome. We appreciate you doing that for everybody. So that's a good headway into question number 2. Why do you love being a cyber expert?
Well, the cybersecurity industry is one of the few industries that where you never stop learning. Every day there's a new thing to learn. So it challenges you. If you're a person who likes challenges, this is the one of the places that you can be in. On top of that, it makes you realize that you can contribute to society by stopping cyber attacks one at a time. So in other words, you make a difference by working in the cybersecurity field, because then you make this world a better place.
I'm sure that your friends and family ask you for cyber advice all the time. So let's talk about that. It's a top concern, and I use air quotes just because I'm sarcastic in that way. But what does cybersecurity as a top concern mean to you?
One of the things that, and I have to say, I agree with others. There's definitely cybersecurity is a top concern because, we're connected via technology, and the technologies that we're using to connect, we're not creating with security in mind. So we're still using, like DNS was created, a long time ago. Pretty much the whole internet was created a long time ago, and it was not created with security in mind. So now people are exploring them, right? So again, those are the things that, people or security people should be focusing on, trying to reduce the risk by implementing security controls or creating security programs, where you need to have a budget, where you need to know how to monitor, you have to, triage and stuff like that. And most importantly, having the right people, having the policies and procedures in place. Those are the things that should be a top concern.
No, that's super insightful. What other pieces of insight or information do you want to share with our cyber network?
I think the most important piece of advice I will give, and this is just in general, from C-level directives, managers, supervisors, to actually people who wants to join the cybersecurity workforce, is go back to the basics, learn the basics. The fundamentals of information security are people, technology, and processes. That's so simple. It's these 3 basic principles that, believe it or not, people are not following, and that's why we're getting hit every time, and we're getting attacked, and the attacks are successful and stuff like that. Because from a directive or manager perspective, they give you a budget, and the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, I'm going to buy a technology. Okay, that's great. Now you got the technology down. But if you don't have the right people to manage that technology or configure it or monitor it or anything like that, then you just waste your time. Then on top of that, what if you don't have the right procedures or policies in place? I mean, you might have the technology and the people, but maybe you don't have the policies in place. So then it's just like a circle that it's never going to end until you got those 3 things down. Then you start seeing success, when you start implementing those type of programs. So I would, my advice is go back, understand what these principles are, understand what they really mean, and then, because that will make things easier. So that will be my advice.
I love it. People, technology and processes. And I love that people is first. So that's something I definitely promote there. Final question. It's the fun question. What's your favorite piece of retro technology that makes you smile?
So when I was a child, or a few years ago, I should say, the one thing that I love, obviously coming after school, was turning my computer on and try dial up the modem. That will be like the first thing. Listening to that, a 56K modem, and then if everything goes through, then it goes away. But then you get other services that make some similar, noises, such as the MSN Messenger. I used to live in MSN Messenger because that's where my family and friends used to be back then. And of course, AOL with You Got Mail, right? So that was one of my favorite retro technologies that, we cannot miss, and we don't, we take for granted what we have back then. Like our new generations don't realize that in order to connect to the internet, it wasn't just opening a browser. It was actually going through a process, hoping that the process didn't fail you, right? And when it, go through, then it's a win, right? Because now you get connected, right? So again, thinking about this one, I will say the modem for sure.
I was super excited to hear your answer, and I was surprised. What most people don't realize, and what I've learned before this, is that you're a big fan of Back to the Future. So I was expecting you to say something like, the DeLorean or the flux capacitor, and throw me for a loop on that. But why do you love Back to the Future? I wanted to ask that earlier, but I want to see if we can't end on that.
Well, first of all, because out of all the sci-fi movies that I saw back in the days, in the 80s, 90s, Back to the Future was the most realistic one that I guess from a technology perspective, we can accomplish, right? Like, obviously, 2015 came up and, we didn't see flying cars or hoverboards or anything like that. But in terms of, like, for example, like if you recall Back to the Future 2, when Marty McFly got fired, via a Zoom call. Now we call it Zoom call, right? But back then it was a video call, right? With the big monitors and everything. I mean, back then, we didn't have it back then. People didn't realize that eventually one day we were gonna have something like that, like big televisions, connection all the time and everything, something like that, right? But the reason why I like the movie is because, again, it kind of makes you think. So if we're like an engineer or someone who likes to build things, kind of set this example for you to actually say, you know what, there is not a flying car. I'm going to create my own flying car, or I'm going to create this app that is going to do this or do that. So there's a lot of things that are from Back to the Future that are still not real, that actually, if you're a new generation, as I call it, go back and watch those three movies, especially the first and the second one, and then look what's missing from that, like how the producers or whoever create the script actually saw and say, in 20, 30 something years, we're gonna have this. Go through the list and see what's not there, so you can actually come up with that technology or whatever that is. The one thing I will suggest for everyone whoever is listening to this and you're thinking about creating that technology, start creating that technology or app or whatever the case is with security in mind, because then it will make things easier for the next generations.
Full circle. I love it, Marco. Thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast.
No, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I hope your audience, will like this and definitely give a thumbs up, because this is great.
You did it. You made it to the end. Thanks for watching the Cyber Pro podcast. Check us out for more content.